I never thought the day would come when my own daughter would speak to me like I was a stray she was tired of feeding. "You're not living here for free anymore, Mom. Get a job or get out." That's what my daughter said as she slammed her coffee mug down, splashing hot liquid onto my unpaid bills. I froze. My own daughter. "You're healthy enough to work," she said coldly, scrolling through her phone. "This isn't my problem anymore." I opened my mouth to remind her how I'd been covering groceries from my pension, watching her kids every day so she could rest, but the words caught in my throat. Her boyfriend Derek strolled in shirtless, smirking like he'd won something. "Sounds fair to me," he said, popping open a soda. I looked at Rachel. Really looked. And in that moment, I realized she didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as dead weight. The mug in my hands trembled. "All right," I said softly. She raised an eyebrow. "All right, what?" "I'll find a job." "Good," she replied without looking up. "You've got 2 weeks." Then she walked out, her designer slippers tapping across the floor like a victory march. I sat alone in that cold kitchen, staring at the pile of bills I couldn't pay. Rachel once promised I'd never be alone. "We're family, Mom. I gotcha," she said when Dad died. Now she couldn't wait to throw me out. But what she didn't know was that I still had more fight left in me than she ever imagined. The house was quiet that night. Too quiet. But I couldn't sleep. My heart wouldn't let me. That's when I heard her laugh. Muffled voices floated down the hall from Rachel's room. Her door was cracked open just enough for sound to slip through. "I swear, babe, she's too soft to survive out there." My stomach twisted. "She's been freeloading for months," Rachel continued, her voice sharper now, dripping with contempt. "I mean, what's she gonna do? Sleep on a park bench? Mom's not built for the real world." Derek's low chuckle followed. "Guess we'll finally have the place to ourselves. About time." My chest tightened. "She's too proud to beg," Rachel said. "She'll either find some dead-end job or," she laughed again, louder this time, "or she'll come crawling back, and then I'll charge her double rent." Even Derek joined in. I wanted to storm down the hall, demand to know when she became this person. But I didn't. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table while Rachel sipped her almond milk latte, scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. "Did you start looking for work yet?" she asked casually, not even glancing up. "Yes," I said quietly. "Good," she replied. "Don't take too long. The end of the month will be here before you know it." I forced myself to nod, but inside, something shifted. This wasn't just about finding a job anymore. This was about survival. And for the first time in years, I felt it. Just a flicker. Something I thought grief had burned out of me. Resolve. I didn't sleep much that night. By dawn, I was already dressed, clutching my purse like a lifeline as I slipped out the door. Rachel wouldn't notice I was gone. She rarely did. The air outside was biting cold, but I didn't care. I walked to the library 2 blocks away, my knees aching with every step. Inside, the faint smell of old books and printer ink greeted me. The librarian, a young man with messy hair and kind eyes, offered me a gentle smile as I passed. I sat down at the nearest computer, fingers hovering awkwardly over the keyboard. It had been years since I'd searched for a job. Where do I even start? I clicked open the first job board and began typing. Housekeeping, low pay, cashier, night shift. Waitress, must be able to lift 50 pounds. Each listing felt like a door slamming in my face. My pension barely covered groceries. If Rachel kicked me out, I'd have nowhere to go. No savings, no home of my own. I swallowed hard and kept scrolling. That's when one line caught my eye. Live-in caregiver needed, high pay, immediate start. My heart thudded. The ad seemed out of place. Most listings offered crumbs. This one promised a feast. I clicked. Seeking compassionate, trustworthy caregiver for elderly client. Experience preferred, but not required. Room and board included. Discretion essential. Room and board. High pay. Immediate start. It sounded too good to be true. But what choice did I have? Rachel's voice echoed in my head. She's too soft to survive out there. My jaw tightened. We'll see about that. I clicked apply. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed. Mrs. Winters? A woman's voice asked. This is Claire from the Callahan Agency. Are you available for an interview tomorrow? Yes, I said without hesitation. Excellent. Bring 2 forms of ID and come to our office at 10 a.m. After I hung up, I sat in Rachel's kitchen staring at my tea. If this job worked out, I could leave. I could be free of her rules, her smirks, her boyfriend's judgmental stares. The thought felt dangerous, electrifying. The next morning, I dressed carefully. My best blouse, the one I hadn't worn since my husband's funeral, and a neat skirt that still fit, barely. Rachel didn't notice me leaving. She was too busy barking at the boys to finish their cereal. Don't forget rent's due in 2 weeks, she called over her shoulder. I didn't answer. I just walked out the door and didn't look back. The Callahan Agency office was pristine. Polished floors, sleek furniture, the faint scent of lavender in the air. Claire, the recruiter, was a petite woman with sharp eyes but a kind smile. You're older than most applicants, she said, scanning my forms. I braced myself for rejection, but then she looked up and added softly, Actually, that's a good thing. Mr. Callahan prefers older caregivers. I blinked. He does? She nodded. He doesn't trust young people, says they're too impatient. A flicker of relief warmed my chest. Claire leaned forward. Can you start tomorrow night? Yes, I said before she finished the question. Good. One more thing. Her voice dropped slightly. The Callahan family can be complicated. Don't let them scare you off. I nodded, gripping my purse tight. I didn't know who Mr. Callahan was, or why a billionaire would hire someone like me, but I'd figure that out later. For now, I had one thought. I'm getting out of Rachel's house. The door clicked shut behind me as I stepped into the guest room, my room for the past 6 months, though Rachel never let me forget it wasn't really mine. I exhaled slowly and set my purse on the bed. My hands were still trembling from the call with the agency. Tomorrow night. In 24 hours, I'd be gone. The thought brought a strange mix of fear and relief. I pulled my suitcase down from the closet shelf. The wheels squeaked as it landed on the floor, loud in the silence. As I folded my clothes, I caught sight of the photo on the dresser. Rachel, at 10 years old, grinning with 2 front teeth missing. I had sewn that birthday dress myself after working overtime at the diner. A lump rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't the same little girl anymore. The door creaked open. Rachel stood there, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. What are you doing? She asked flatly. Packing, I said without looking up. Why? I got a job. I'm moving out tomorrow. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise? Guilt? But it vanished as quickly as it came. Good, she said, her tone sharp. One less mouth to feed. Her words sliced deep, but I kept my face still. Just make sure you don't leave a mess, she added, turning to leave. Rachel, I said softly. She stopped in the doorway. I hope you'll take care of yourself, I said. She scoffed. Don't worry about me, Mom. Worry about yourself for once. Then she walked away. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the half-packed suitcase. Tomorrow, but before that, I wanted to discuss it with Martha, my closest friend. The church garden smelled faintly of lilacs and wet stone. I sat on the bench, fingers twisting in my lap, as Martha watched me with those sharp eyes of hers. So, a live-in job with a billionaire, she said slowly, sipping her tea. That's something. It's my only option, Martha, I murmured. Room and board, high pay. I don't have time to be picky. You don't sound convinced, she said gently. I'm not, I admitted, but I can't stay with Rachel anymore. She's made that very clear. Martha reached over and patted my hand. Just be careful, dear. Wealthy families can be complicated, all those secrets locked behind pretty doors. I nodded, forcing a thin smile. But her words followed me as I walked home. Complicated. That night, I began packing for the last time. Rachel leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, watching me fold my dresses into the suitcase. "So this is it. You're finally moving out?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Good," she smirked. "One less mouth to feed." The words stung, but I bit them back. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. The next afternoon, I stood at the gates of the Callahan mansion, my suitcase in hand. The place was breathtaking. 3 stories of pale stone, ivy curling along the walls, windows so tall they seemed to touch the sky. A butler greeted me with a stiff nod. "Mrs. Winters? Right this way." Inside, the air smelled faintly of polished wood and old money. Every surface gleamed. I tried to steady my hands as I followed him through the marble foyer. "This will be your room," he said, stopping in front of a carved oak door. "Mr. Callahan will meet you in the morning. For now, settle in." "Thank you," I murmured. As I unpacked, I wandered cautiously down the hall, curious but wary. The mansion was eerily quiet. I half expected to hear laughter, clinking glasses, music echoing off the high ceilings. Instead, I heard voices. Hushed at first, then sharper. "She doesn't belong here," a woman hissed from somewhere above. "Keep your voice down," a man muttered. "I don't care if she's old and harmless. Get her out before she ruins everything." My heart thudded in my chest. I stepped back quietly, retreating to my quarters. "Complicated," Martha had said. And now I was beginning to understand what she meant. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, painting golden lines across the polished floor. I stood in the doorway of Mr. Callahan's study, clutching my hands together, waiting to be acknowledged. He sat in a leather armchair near the window, his frame still and rigid, like a marble statue. The blanket draped across his legs did nothing to soften his sharp presence. "You must be Mrs. Winters," he said at last, his voice deep but edged with steel. "Yes, sir," I replied, stepping forward cautiously. "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. I obeyed, smoothing my skirt as I sat. He studied me in silence, not the way most men look at a woman, but like he was trying to read every line of my face. "You're older than I expected," he murmured. "I can leave if you prefer someone else," I said quietly, forcing myself to hold his gaze. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. "Don't mistake me, Mrs. Winters. Older doesn't mean weaker. In fact, I think you might be exactly what I need." I blinked, unsure what to say. He leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly. "They don't want you here." My stomach tightened. "They? Who?" I asked softly, though I already suspected the answer. "My niece, my nephew. To them I'm a walking bank account. And you," he paused, voice dropping, "are a threat to their plans." "I don't understand," I whispered. "You don't need to," he replied. "You just need to do your job and trust me." I hesitated. "Why me?" "Because you're not like the others," he said. "You've been betrayed before. I can see it in your eyes." His words hit like a cold wind. "You don't know me," I said, but my voice wavered. "I know enough." He glanced out the window, his expression hardening. "Stay quiet. Stay steady. They'll test you, Mrs. Winters, but I trust you to hold your ground." Later, as I unpacked my modest belongings in my quarters, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. A small victory. He trusts me. But as I folded the last blouse into the drawer, I couldn't shake the sound of the woman's voice from the night before. "Get her out of here. She'll ruin everything." Whatever everything was, I had a sinking feeling I was already in the middle of it. The dining room felt colder than the rest of the house. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, catching the silverware so sharply it hurt my eyes. I stood awkwardly near the sideboard, waiting to see where I fit in this world of polished surfaces and icy stares. At the head of the table, Mr. Callahan sat silently, his sharp blue eyes scanning the morning paper. Then she arrived, the young woman from the night before, his niece. She swept into the room like she owned it, her perfume trailing behind her like a warning. Her gaze landed on me instantly. "So," she said, pulling out a chair with a clatter, "you're the new one." "Yes, ma'am," I replied softly. Her lips curled in a smirk. "Let's cut the act, shall we? You're just here for the paycheck, aren't you?" I froze, her words slicing the air like a blade. I could feel Mr. Callahan's eyes on me now, watching carefully. waiting to see how I would respond. I met her icy stare and said, calm and steady, "I'm here to care for him. That's all." For a moment, her smirk faltered. Across the table, I caught a flicker of movement. "Mr." Callahan's lips curling ever so slightly into a faint smirk of his own. The niece let out a sharp laugh. "We'll see how long that lasts. They never do." She turned her attention back to her phone, dismissing me like I was a stray leaf on the table. But I didn't flinch. I poured Mr. Callahan's tea with steady hands, my shoulders square, my chin high. If she wanted me to break, she'd have to try harder. When breakfast ended, Mr. Callahan spoke for the first time. "Walk with me." I helped him into his wheelchair and pushed him gently down the long corridor, lined with portraits of grim-faced ancestors. "You handled her well," he murmured. "I didn't want to cause trouble," I said softly. "She is trouble," he replied, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "They all are." I hesitated. "Why keep them around?" "Because they're family," he said. Then, after a beat, "But blood doesn't always mean loyalty." We stopped by the garden doors. He glanced up at me. "Keep your head down, but don't let them push you out. Understand?" "Yes, sir," I whispered. He nodded once, satisfied, and in that quiet moment I felt it, a tiny shift in the balance of power. The late afternoon sun bathed the garden in gold as I wheeled Mr. Callahan out onto the veranda. "Stop here," he said softly. The koi pond shimmered in the distance, the surface rippling like glass. He stared at it for a long moment, his sharp blue eyes unreadable. "I didn't hire you just to pour tea and fluff pillows," he said at last. I gripped the handles of his chair tighter. "I don't understand." His gaze cut to mine. "They're circling me like vultures, Ruth. My niece, my nephew. They want me to sign over my assets while I'm too weak to fight them." A cold knot twisted in my stomach. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked cautiously. "Because you're the first person in this house who isn't after something." I swallowed hard. "You don't know that for sure." "Yes, I do." His voice was steady now. "You've been betrayed before. It's written all over you." His words sank deep, scraping raw wounds I thought I'd buried. I looked out at the koi pond, my reflection fractured on the surface. Rachel's voice echoed in my mind. "You're too soft to survive out there." I tightened my jaw. "Mr. Callahan," I said quietly, "I won't let them take advantage of you, not while I'm here." His lips curled ever so slightly into that faint smirk I'd seen at breakfast. "Good," he murmured, "then we'll fight together." That night, as I lay in the guest quarters, I couldn't sleep. The mansion was silent, but my thoughts weren't. Rachel had thrown me out like trash. Now Mr. Callahan's family wanted to do the same to him. Bleed him dry and toss the husk aside. I could feel something sparking in my chest. Not fear, not grief, something hotter. Rage. The next morning, I watched the staff bustling around the kitchen, preparing another elaborate breakfast. One of the maids glanced nervously toward the staircase. "They've been in the study with the lawyer since dawn," she whispered. "The family's pressuring him again." I clenched my hands into fists beneath the table. Rachel's betrayal had left me broken, but this time I wouldn't be caught off guard. I wouldn't let greed win again. As Mr. Callahan came into the dining room later, our eyes met. For a split second, I saw it, that same fire burning in his chest, and I knew then, this wasn't just a job anymore. This was war. The air in the car was thick with silence as we drove through the city. Mr. Callahan sat beside me, his face expressionless, but I could feel the weight radiating off him. "They don't know about this meeting, do they?" I asked quietly. His lips curved into the faintest smirk. "They think I'm at the doctor's." I nodded, fingers clutching my purse tight. The mansion staff had packed a thermos of tea for him, but my stomach was too knotted to even think about sipping it. "Ruth," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension, "you can still back out." I shook my head. "No, I won't." He studied me for a moment, then turned back to the window. "Good." The lawyer's office was a quiet fortress of glass and polished wood. Claire, the same woman who'd first interviewed me for the job, rose as we entered. "Mr. Callahan," she greeted, her voice warm but professional. "Mrs. Winters." We followed her into a private room. Papers were neatly stacked on the mahogany table, the weight of them almost humming in the air. "Your family's been persistent," Claire said delicately as she poured coffee into tiny porcelain cups. "They've called this office 6 times this month, pressuring us for updates." "They won't get one," Mr. Callahan said firmly. Claire nodded. "This," she said, sliding a thick folder across to him, "is the revised will. Everything is as you requested." My eyes flicked to the bold letters on the front page. "Confidential, last will and testament of Charles Callahan." "Mrs. Winters," Claire said, turning to me, "do you understand your role in this?" I hesitated, my palms slick with sweat. "Yes. Mr. Callahan trusts me to oversee his care and to protect his interests if the family tries to intervene." "Good," she said with a tight smile, "because they will try." Mr. Callahan's pen scratched across the paper, signing page after page with a steady hand. As he signed the final line, he looked up at me. "They'll come for you too, Ruth," he said softly. "Are you ready for that?" I swallowed hard. I wasn't ready the last time someone I loved turned on me. But now? I think I am. His lips twitched into that faint smirk again. "Quiet doesn't mean weak," he murmured. The drive back to the mansion felt longer than the journey out. I stared out the window as rows of trees blurred past, my mind racing. Rachel had stripped me of everything once. My home, my dignity, my sense of self. I wasn't going to let the Callahan heirs do the same to him, not while I still had fight left in me. As we pulled through the mansion gates, a chill ran down my spine. 2 figures stood on the front steps, Mr. Callahan's niece and nephew, both dressed impeccably, both wearing expressions that could cut glass. "They're here already," I muttered. "Of course they are," Mr. Callahan replied calmly, "like vultures smelling blood." I helped him out of the car, bracing for the confrontation. But they didn't approach us. Not yet. They just watched, their eyes darting between us, their jaws tight with suspicion. That evening, I sat alone in my quarters, staring at the small notebook where I'd begun documenting every whisper, every glare, every attempt they made to undermine me. The family didn't know it yet, but the game had changed. Mr. Callahan wasn't alone anymore, and neither was I. The mansion was quiet that night, too quiet. Even the air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I slipped out of my quarters to fetch a glass of water, my slippers brushing softly against the marble floor. That's when I heard it. A faint creak near the front foyer. I froze. The staff had long since retired to their rooms. Mr. Callahan was asleep. And yet, there it was again. The sound of the front door clicking shut. My pulse quickened as I crept down the hallway, keeping to the shadows. And then I saw her. Rachel. She stood in the dim light of the foyer, her arms crossed, her expression tight with determination and desperation. "Mom?" she hissed as soon as her eyes met mine. My stomach twisted. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," she shot back, stepping closer. "You work for him, a billionaire, and you didn't even tell me?" I kept my voice low. "How did you find me?" "I called your old friend Martha," she admitted with a shrug. "She didn't want to tell me, but I made her." And now, her eyes scanned the grand staircase, the gleaming chandelier overhead, the polished marble floors. "Now it all makes sense. You're living in luxury while I'm struggling to keep the boys in their after-school programs." I crossed my arms. "You told me to leave." "Remember," her lips curled into a tight smile. "That was before I knew you'd end up here." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Introduce me to Mr. Callahan," she demanded. "Tell him I'm your daughter. Maybe he'll be generous. A small loan, a trust fund for the boys, something." "Rachel." She didn't wait. "You owe me, Mom. After everything I've done for you." "Stop." My voice was sharper than I intended. Her eyes widened slightly. "You threw me out of your house like a piece of garbage," I said quietly. "You mocked me behind my back. And now you want me to drag you into this man's life so you can bleed him dry too?" "That's not fair," she snapped. I was stressed. I didn't mean half the things I said. You meant enough of them, I replied coldly. The tension between us thickened until it felt like the entire house was leaning in to listen. Mom, listen to me. Her voice cracked now. I'm in over my head. Credit cards maxed out. Derek lost his job. If you don't help us— I can't help you, Rachel, I interrupted softly. Yes, you can. You're here, working for a man with more money than God. One word from you and he could set us up for life. I shook my head. You're not dragging me back into your mess. Her face hardened, the desperation melting into anger. You've changed, she spat. You used to do anything for me. I used to let you take and take until there was nothing left, I said. Not anymore. A faint voice cut through the silence behind me. Is there a problem, Mrs. Winters? I turned. The butler stood at the top of the stairs, his expression unreadable, but his posture rigid. Rachel stiffened, her eyes darting toward the door. I was just leaving, she muttered. See that you do, the butler replied coolly. Rachel looked at me one last time. You'll regret this, she whispered. Then she turned and slipped out the front door, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble. I stood there in the empty foyer, my chest tight. For years, I thought I'd do anything to keep my daughter close, but tonight, I realized the truth. Sometimes the strongest love is knowing when to say no. The kitchen was quiet, lit only by the warm glow under the cabinets. I stood at the counter, brewing chamomile tea, trying to calm my restless thoughts. Then I heard it, heels striking the marble floor. Sharp, purposeful. Mom, I turned. Rachel stood in the doorway, her red blouse catching the low light like a warning flare. Her arms were crossed tight over her chest, but her eyes blazed with fury. I tried calling, she said coldly. You ignored me. I had nothing more to say, I replied softly. That's funny, she snapped, stepping closer, because I have plenty. She dropped her hands to her sides, her fingers curling like claws. You've been working for a billionaire, living in a mansion, and you're telling me you can't spare anything for your daughter? Not a loan, not even a favor. Her voice cracked. Anger, not pain. Rachel. No, she shouted, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. You owe me, Mom, after everything I've done for you. After I took you in when Dad died, after I fed you, You didn't take me in, I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. You made me pay for every crumb with my dignity. Rachel blinked. Just for a second, the mask slipped. You're twisting things, she hissed. You wouldn't have survived without me. And you wouldn't have survived college without me, I replied, my voice steady as stone. Or your first apartment. Or those years I worked 2 jobs so you and your brother never went hungry. I never kept score, Rachel. But maybe I should have. Her jaw tightened, her nails digging into her palms. You think you're so righteous now, she spat. Living in some rich man's house. Don't act like you earned it. I didn't earn this house, I said quietly, but I earned my peace. She laughed bitterly. Peace? You're a servant here. Don't fool yourself, Mom. The second he doesn't need you, you'll be out on the street again. And where will you go then? Crawling back to me? I set the tea kettle down gently and turned to face her fully. No, Rachel, I said. I won't crawl back. Not to you. Not to anyone. Fine, she said, her voice low and venomous now. If you won't help me, don't expect me to come running when you fall flat on your face. And don't think you'll see your grandsons again. You're dead to me. The words landed like stones, but I didn't flinch. Maybe I already was, I said softly. A sound came from behind us, the faint creak of wheels on marble. Is there a problem here? Mr. Callahan sat in his wheelchair, just beyond the doorway, his blue eyes sharp and unblinking. Rachel stiffened. No problem, she muttered. Good, he said coolly, because this house has no room for drama. Or leeches. Rachel's face flushed crimson. Excuse me? You heard me, he replied. Leave my home. For once, Rachel didn't argue. She spun on her heel, her heels clicking like gunshots as she stormed out. The front door slammed a moment later, the sound reverberating through the house like a final word. I stood frozen, hands trembling slightly. "She won't stop," I whispered. "She might," Mr. Callahan said, "when she realizes you're not the same woman she threw out of her house." His smirk returned, faint but approving. "Quiet doesn't mean weak, Mrs. Winters. You're learning that." I nodded, clutching my tea like a shield. "Yes," I said, "I am." Later, Mr. Callahan gathered everyone for a family meeting. The air in the study felt like glass, fragile, ready to shatter. Mr. Callahan sat at the head of the long table, his hands folded neatly over his blanket. His blue eyes swept over every person in the room like a blade. On his left, his niece perched with her arms crossed, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Next to her, his nephew scrolled carelessly through his phone, pretending he wasn't seething. And then there was Rachel, my daughter. She shouldn't have been here, but somehow she had wedged herself into this meeting, sitting rigidly at the far end of the table, like a predator waiting for scraps. It had started when the staff tried to keep her out. "I'm family," she'd insisted, her voice rising in the hallway. "My mother works for him. If there's an inheritance to discuss, I deserve to hear it too." Before anyone could drag her away, Rachel had stormed into the study, plopping herself into an empty chair. I'd felt my stomach drop. But Mr. Callahan hadn't flinched. "Let her stay," he said evenly. "This might be educational. I've called you all here for one reason," he began, his voice sharp as the winter wind outside. "To discuss my estate." Rachel's lips curled into a sly smile. "Good," she said. "It's time someone set things straight." "Set straight?" his niece snapped. "You're not even part of this family." "She's right," I said quietly, glancing at Rachel. "You shouldn't be here." But Rachel waved me off, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Mom, stop embarrassing me. I'm here for us, for our future." Claire, the attorney, cleared her throat and slid a thick folder onto the table. "This is the updated will," she announced. "Effective immediately, all assets will pass into a protected trust. Charles Callahan's niece and nephew have been removed as beneficiaries." The words detonated like a bomb. "What?" the niece shrieked, half rising from her seat. "You can't do that," the nephew barked. Rachel shot to her feet, her voice cracking. "You're leaving her in charge, aren't you?" she screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You've let my mother poison your mind. She's manipulating you, just like she manipulated me." I froze, the venom in her words cutting deep. "Rachel!" "No!" she shrieked. "You owe me, Mom. After everything I've done for you, you're just gonna sit here and let this old man cut me out too?" "You're not owed anything," Mr. Callahan said coldly. "You're not my family, and you've proven you're no real daughter to the woman who raised you." Rachel's face flushed crimson. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "All of you will regret this," Claire raised her hand calmly. "Security will escort Ms. Winters out, and anyone else who continues to disrupt these proceedings." 2 guards appeared in the doorway. Rachel's eyes darted between them, her fury melting into desperation. "You think you're strong now, Mom," she spat. "But when this rich old man dies, you'll have nothing, and don't come crawling back to me." "I won't," I said softly. The guards took her by the arms and led her toward the door. Her heels clicked angrily against the floor, echoing like gunshots. The heavy door shut behind her with a final, satisfying thud. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Mr. Callahan let out a slow breath. "You didn't flinch," he said. "I've done enough flinching for one lifetime," I replied. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. "Good." The air in the study felt heavier after Rachel's exit, as if her anger had left a residue in the walls. I stood frozen, my palms pressed against the smooth surface of the table. My ears still rang with her words. "You'll regret this. All of you will regret this." "Mrs. Winters," Mr. Callahan's voice pulled me back. "Yes?" I asked, forcing my breath to steady. "You did well," he said. "They're gone, for now. But people like that never disappear quietly." I nodded, gripping the edge of the table until my fingers ached. Outside, the sound of raised voices drifted faintly through the hall. I followed Mr. Callahan as his wheelchair creaked slowly toward the grand staircase. From the top landing, we saw them. Rachel stood near the front doors, her hands balled into fists. The Callahan niece and nephew flanked her, their voices low but sharp, arguing with the security guards. "You can't just throw us out like criminals," the niece snapped. "This is still our family home." The nephew barked. Rachel's face was pale with rage. Her eyes darted up and met mine across the wide hall. "This isn't over, Mom," she hissed. "You think you've won? He'll drop dead one of these days. And then where will you be?" I didn't flinch. "I'll be right where I belong," I said softly. 2 guards opened the massive double doors. "Escort them off the property," Claire ordered from behind us, her tone calm but iron hard. Rachel let out a sharp laugh, though her voice wavered at the edges. "You're all pathetic," she spat, "letting some washed-up old woman run your lives." "Keep talking," the guard said coolly. "The louder you get, the faster we drag you out." Rachel's jaw tightened. For the first time, she went quiet. I stood silently on the landing as they were led out the doors, their angry voices fading into the night air. The gates groaned as they swung open, and then slammed shut with a heavy clang that seemed to echo all the way through my chest. The house was still again. For the first time since I arrived, I felt like I could breathe. Mr. Callahan's faint smirk returned. "You've survived the first storm," he said. I met his gaze. "I'm not here to survive," I replied. "I'm here to protect you." His eyes softened, just slightly. "Then you'll do fine." That night, I stood alone in my quarters, staring out at the mansion gates. The moonlight spilled over the garden paths, painting the estate in pale silver. I thought of Rachel's face as the guards led her away. Rage, desperation, humiliation all tangled together. For years, I'd done anything to keep her happy, anything to keep her close. But now I wasn't her lifeline anymore. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt free. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos.